This young man is only 16 years old, but he already earns $400,000 a month playing games and selling in-game items. When he was in college, he often skipped classes to sell cheap seeds and earned a lot of money. At 19, he founded a dried seaweed company, and at 21, he paid off his family's debt of more than 40 million baht. By the age of 26, his seaweed products have been exported to 27 countries, with an annual revenue of 1.5 billion baht. He is the youngest entrepreneur and businessman in Thailand named Edipat. Anyone can learn something from him, but how can he do it? Let's go with the movie fanatics to the movie Billionaire to find out the answer. This guy's name is Top, a naughty rich kid, doesn't like to study, and is addicted to playing games. While he was fighting in the game, someone liked his weapon and was willing to spend 10,000 baht to buy it. Top suspected that he entered his bank account number and actually received the money. This made him discover a business opportunity. When he got home, he immediately shot all the remaining weapons in the game and earned hundreds of thousands of silver easily. He used this money to buy a supercar and drove it to school. His action was criticized by the head teacher, but he didn't care. Now he has become the only male in school. Wherever he goes, he becomes the center of attention. When he comes home at night, his parents find out and think he's done something bad, asking him to focus on his studies and not let them worry. But he doesn't care and continues to play games and sell things. Gwen had just written down the lesson, and it turned into a mouse pad. Tak was very generous when it came to buying electronic products, buying whatever he liked. As expected, Tak failed the university entrance exam and had to go to a private school. In the living room, he heard his parents arguing about the expensive tuition fees of private schools. Only then did he realize that his family was in huge debt. Tak wanted to help his parents pay off the debt, but his game account had been locked by the server because of frequent offline transactions. Don't joke with me like that. Hare was a little disappointed, but he didn't give up. He looked at the newly bought DVD player, immediately thinking of a new idea. This type of game console was a free gift with the purchase of a TV, showing that the price was not high. If you could import a large quantity at a very low wholesale price, then sell it to others at a high price, you could make a lot of money on the order. So, Toy used his tuition money to buy 500 of them. If he succeeded, he could earn several hundred thousand. But after returning home, he was shocked. All of these DVD players were fake. Most of them were broken and unusable. He went to the shop owner to reason with him, but he said that once the goods left the store, they could not be returned. He also made fun of his hair, saying that the DVD player, which cost 500 baht, was actually a fake. You get what you pay for. There is no such thing as cheap but good. Hare was so angry that he grabbed the DVD player and smashed it, breaking the glass cabinet. The boss was so angry that he gave Hare a slap on the face. He was so scared that he ran away. His first business venture failed. In the end, his father still loved him the most. His father reminded him that doing business was not as simple as playing games, then spent a lot of money to pay for his tuition. But he refused to accept the money. But he still had to study, and his Hare came up with another way. He went to the study room to get his father's amulet, pawned 100,000 VND, and finally had enough money to pay his tuition. But in class, he only thought about how to earn money to get his father's amulet back, so he had no mind to study, often skipping school to go out. That day, he saw an automatic chestnut roasting machine at the fair. Chestnut roasting is a popular snack, but it is only available in Chinatown. Not only was the road far away, but the queue was also very long. If he could open a shop selling roasted cheap nuts nearby, he would definitely make a lot of money. Thinking of this, Top did not hesitate to buy a cheap nut roaster. After that, he went to Chinatown to learn how to roast chestnuts. After he returned, he practiced continuously and finally became able to make delicious roasted chestnuts. After that, Top hired a vendor in the shopping mall to sell roasted chestnuts, but he didn't sell much, only selling a few portions of chestnuts a day. What was the problem? Top listened to the sales pitch of other street vendors. Slide realized that good products were only the basics. If you want to do good business, you have to learn how to promote your products. So Top went to the market, this seemingly ordinary place, but it contained very useful marketing and product promotion skills. Free gifts, deep discounts were definitely the most direct marketing methods. But the most important thing was to choose the right location. For example, when raising funds for charity, standing in front of a public restroom, the most crowded place, people passing by would forget the corner of it. Top took notes and started to change his sales methods when he returned to the region. He moved his cheap tooth nut stall to the front of the shopping mall. Sure enough, when there were a lot of people passing by, his cheap tooth nut sold very well and he made a lot of money. Top happily said, "Let's open a few more branches." But the good times didn't last long. The smoke from the cheap tooth machine blackened the ceiling of the shopping mall. The manager asked Top to make adjustments or else he wouldn't be able to rent it to him anymore. In order not to disturb others, Top had no choice but to repaint the ceiling after the mall closed. He painted until midnight and was almost done. But at this moment, the security guard came and chased him away. Top saw this and immediately took out the money, trying to use it to solve the problem. But unexpectedly, the security guard told Top's mother to teach her son a lesson, then returned the money to Top and urged him to leave. Top was not convinced, saying that he would come again tomorrow. But his mother told him that he had to go get a passport tomorrow. The family was bankrupt, and he couldn't stay here anymore. His parents planned to send Top to live with his older siblings. But the cheap nut store had just opened, so Top couldn't bear to leave like that. So Top convinced his parents to let him and the housekeeper stay here, continuing to sell cheap seeds. He completely neglected his studies, but the problem of Tran Na still could not find a perfect solution. Top was eventually kicked out of the shopping mall. He had been struggling for a long time, until that day, when he and his girlfriend went out to relax a bit. His girlfriend bought a box of fried seaweed. Top ate a piece and couldn't stop. This kind of dried seaweed seemed to have an irresistible charm. Top suddenly had an idea. He also wanted to sell dried seaweed. When he first started, he bought pre-fried dried seaweed to sell outside, but it couldn't be preserved for long. It went bad in less than a week. So he went to the agricultural university and asked a food processing professor for advice on how to preserve dried seaweed. The professor was moved by Top's story and immediately told him the secret to preserving the food, which was to use vacuum bags. All he needed was a vacuum sealer. Now, let's see how he could make it taste better. Top immediately nodded. Sell all the cheap toothpicks, buy a lot of dried seaweed, and prepare to fry them himself. Put the dried seaweed in a pan of oil. Use tongs to flip it over and over. Wait until it hardens. Put it in your mouth and try a piece. Too bitter. Failed the first time. Try it again, too boring. No matter how you fry it, you can't make delicious fried seaweed. After countless attempts at frying, the dried seaweed was gone, and he still couldn't fry anything properly. Top had no choice but to sell his favorite computer to continue buying seaweed. This amount of money could buy 5 to 6 boxes of seaweed. The management couldn't stand by and watch any longer. They had already wasted 100,000 baht, and if they continued, they would waste even more. But Top was determined. He had already spent 100,000 baht, and he couldn't afford to be put in jail now. He believed that sooner or later, he would earn back the money he had lost, and even more. That night he brought the seaweed home. When he entered the house, he found Kwan lying motionless on the floor, bleeding from his head. Top hurriedly took Kwan to the hospital. In the hospital, he sat alone on a chair. This was a difficult time for him, but those who can overcome adversity will succeed. He returned home and turned on the stove, put the seaweed in a pan of oil, turned it around, then threw it out to absorb the oil, and put the seaweed in his mouth to taste. His face suddenly changed color. Then he immediately spat out the seaweed. The dried seaweed was almost fried. The hot oil splashed on his hand, causing many injuries. Many years later, those scars were still there, looking at the anti-aircraft barrel. Could it be that his startup was going to fail? Suddenly, he saw a bag on the ground. Top put it in the oil pan above. The surface of the seaweed looked very dry and not sticky with oil. This is what he wanted. Top took a bite. It was really crispy. This time it was ready. He put it all in his mouth and ate it. Top picked up the bag of seaweed and found it very moist inside. It turned out that the secret to seaweed was to soak it in water. This seaweed package was the seaweed package that had been soaked in rainwater. Sometimes the secret was something very ordinary. He quickly brought the result to show off to the butler. Top seaweed quickly became popular. His business gradually took off, and he wrote 1 million baht a year on his palm. But that day, Top received a phone call from his mother, only to find out that the family still owed 40 million baht. Top felt so small. He had to sell seaweed for 40 years to pay off all this debt. What was worse, the bank had already repossessed his house. Now he has no home to return to. But even so, Top will not give up. If he wants to make money, he must look further and wider. He stared at the 7-Eleven chain. If he could cooperate with them and sell his products nationwide, he would definitely make a lot of money. So he brought the seaweed to the 7-Eleven product manager. The other party flatly refused. The packaging was too big. The noodles were ugly and wouldn't attract customers. Plus the price he offered was too high, not suitable for the characteristics of a convenience store. Top went home a little disappointed, but his girlfriend came looking for him again. She suggested that her family help him. But Top was very strong-willed and did not want her to help him. In addition, he felt inferior about his situation and broke up with his girlfriend. That night, he went to the butler, tiredly lying next to him and falling asleep. But he was not one to fail once and then give up. Early the next morning, Top immediately brought the fried seaweed product to the food company. He asked them to redesign the packaging. This time the seaweed package had a completely new look, but the secretary told him that the director had a meeting all day today. He said he would wait, and he patiently waited for an hour. But he only saw the director busy inside and not coming out to meet him. Top was about to lose his patience. He disappointedly took his seaweed and left. Then he gave his seaweed to him to leave in the elevator. Unexpectedly, the next day, he received a notification. His product could be put on sale. It turned out that the staff at headquarters found the seaweed he left behind attractive. So they took a few packs back to the office to try. Unexpectedly, after just one bite, they craved it so much that they had to suck their fingers. His seaweed packets quickly spread throughout the company and reached the director's desk. She was extremely pleased. Top was invited to a meeting. Your seaweed products can be distributed to 3,000 stores and 72,000 convenience stores nationwide. A month later, a QC team will come to check the quality. As long as your factory meets the quality standards, you can sign the contract. But where could Top get a factory? His family kitchen was completely inadequate. He went to the bank to borrow money to open a factory. The bank employee saw that he was only 19 years old. Furthermore, his family is in debt of 40 million VND. The house is still in the process of judicial auction. Unable to borrow from the bank, Top once again fell into a deadlock. He turned up the music as loud as he could and sat in his car screaming. Next, Top sold his favorite car and rented his family's old warehouse. He converted it into a seaweed factory. On the way back from buying materials to fix the gas, Top caught his ex-girlfriend holding hands with someone else. Top stood there, stunned. He and the workers worked together and slept together. That night, he asked the manager what he would do if he failed again. The manager told him not to think too much. No one knew what the future would bring. We designed every corner of him, leaving enough time for the QC team to come and inspect. But when they came to visit the factory, they discovered many big problems. The paint on the wall was still sticky, and there were even turtles. The photovoltaic panel didn't have a dozen lights. The sink was unsanitary. Top immediately promised to redo it, but they said they needed to come back to negotiate. The result will be announced to you. At this time, the butler stuffed an envelope into your hand, tell you to give it to someone to fill first. But Top chose not to do so. As a man, one must do things thoroughly. He was determined to deal with all the remaining problems. The hand-washing sinks were upgraded. Workers wore gloves and hoods. Dozens more fluorescent tubes were installed. The quality test results were out today, but just as he got to the results, the printer ran out of ink. Top rushed outside, holding the paper up to the sunlight. The result above has a word order. All your efforts have paid off. 2 weeks later comes the delivery date. Top finished washing his face and looked at the workers busy working. He ran to hug the butler. Thank you for always being there to help him. At the same time, he said that if they failed again this time, they would really have nothing left. Then Top loaded the goods onto the truck and started to leave. But when he arrived at the delivery warehouse, it was already an hour late. Top urgently begged the staff to help him receive the goods. He had to work all night until 5 a.m. to load all the goods onto the truck. The staff agreed to help him, so each box of Top seaweed was moved into the warehouse. He sat there looking at the empty shelves in front of him. Top called his parents. They could come home now. Finally, Top seaweed was successfully sold all over the country. In the next 2 years, Top paid off the $40 million debt. At the age of 26, his factory had 2,000 workers. Products were exported to 27 countries. Annual revenue reached $1.5 billion, entering the top 50 richest people in Thailand. The film is a true story about Tao Kanoi's founder, named Ekipat, talking about the difficulties when he started his business. Question from the movie: have you ever eaten Tao Kanoi seaweed? If so, is it really as delicious as in the movie? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching the whole video. Goodbye and see you again.